Welcome back to Moon Harbor Heroes. Today's issue is a Faces recap issue. On the cover, we see the new Faces team, Lighthammer, Asimov, and Inky standing heroically and looking out at the reader. Behind them, vaguely transparent, the previous team members, Faye, Ryder Typhon, and Carl, stand, gazing at them protectively. We turn the page and our story begins. Our issue opens on a full page of the newest iteration of the Faces team. Lighthammer, Brian, aka Asimov, and Inky, as well as Gerard the Plant and Greg the Stoic, the talking stag, walking down a street illuminated by a sunset. An editor's note reads, "The new Faces team, but how did we get here?" We turn the page and see the original Faces team, Felix, the hero Ryder Typhon, Alana, alter ego Faye, and Carl, who sometimes went by Myriad and Gollum, in a similar pose. Underneath, there's a series of small panels showing key elements of their early stories. The first of these shows the demon inside Faye manifesting and attacking the smiling phoenix, a creature seemingly made of fire. Next to that panel, we see an amulet laying on the ground, showing the reflection of Carl reaching down to pick it up. The next panel shows Carl as the amulet's power blends with his and turns his body into living flame, much like the smiling phoenix earlier. A text box reads, "Our team all had their demons. Alana and Carl's were just more literal." The next section of the page shows Ryder Typhon sitting on a couch with an older gentleman, as Faye and Carl come crashing through a portal onto a table, kissing. A second panel shows them explaining the situation to the gentleman, Bert, in the background, while in the foreground, Felix holds a phone to his ear, a voice coming from it saying, "I have your uncle." Felix drops the phone and runs for the door, Alana right behind him. The editor's note reads, "Felix's demon, on the other hand, was his father, the Dark Rider." The next page is split into 3 columns, each showing one of our major characters' journeys. Ryder's column shows him searching for his Uncle Leo and his first team-up with Lighthammer, fighting off a small crowd of cult members. Faye's column shows her team-up with Sapai, a young non-binary super with similarly demonic powers, as they infiltrate that same cult's headquarters. Carl's column shows him in Egypt, fighting atop a flying pirate ship, the amulet's flames surging around him. As we turn the page, we see an editor's note near the top that says, "Our enemies converge." Below that, we see a full-page panel of a nice office, where Mary Louise Rogers, the head of the cult, and Dark Rider shake hands, as mystical energies swirl around them. Through the window behind them, several alien spaceships fly, one of them erupting in bright red flame. On the opposite page, we see a page split in 2 panels. The first one shows a rocky beach. In the sky, there's a swirling vortex of dark clouds, making the shape of a monstrous face, which Faye, in her demonic form, launches towards. Below that, Dark Rider and Ryder Typhon square off with one another, and Carl faces a crowd of magical cultists. The second panel on the page shows the team standing, triumphant and determined, on that same beach. The cultist and sky is cleared. Uncle Leo stands with them, his hand on Felix's shoulder. We turn the page and see a big editor's note that says, "Our heroes' stories converge with other heroes. See the blockade crossover." Below that are a montage of panels from the Asteron blockade arc. Ryder Typhon and Carl fighting with several other heroes, Rascal King, Machina, Blue Samurai, and a robot belonging to Asimov, against several large alien creatures. Ryder face-to-face with Faye, his best friend, and Lighthammer, his potential love interest, both possessed by alien magic. Carl, in a massive display of power, joining his mind with the entire fleet of ships to send them crashing into the ground, dozens of heroes working together to protect the city from falling debris, and then Carl being reborn as a being of blue energy. Across the bottom of that page, Brian shakes hands with Ryder, who has his arm around Lighthammer's shoulder, an editor's note reading, "Some teammates gained." At the same time, we see Faye stepping through a portal into a dimension that looks like some form of hell while Carl watches sadly. The editor's note reads, "And a teammate lost." At the top of our next page, an editor's note reads, "While old foes resurface." The page is split in 2. The top shows Zielkiev, Faye's demon, surrounded by hundreds of floating shards of multicolored glass. She looks out at the reader, her eyes intense. The lower panel shows a metallic figure, vaguely humanoid, lurking in the wreckage of the Asteron spaceship. This is Dijkstra, the monster Brian created in his earlier years and the source of his shame. On the adjacent page, we see a shadowy figure that looks a lot like a slightly older Brian, the villain Remix. Near the bottom of that page, the editor's box continues, saying, "New threats emerge." The next page is split in two vertically. On the left half, Lighthammer clashes hammers with Greyhammer, a grizzled older man in the same costume. On the right, Felix and Brian fight a woman in a dress made of film strips, while the shadow of a whale looms over her. The two villains share a text bubble that says, "Remix sends his regards." The adjacent page is very similar, showing Dykstra on the left fighting Carl in a TV studio. On the right, Lighthammer and Brian fight Remix on a boardwalk. In the background of that, a portal is ripped open, through which we see Faye and Supai emerging from hell, looking worse for wear. The editor's note reads, "The team reunited, but is that a good thing?" We turn the page and see several scenes showing demons taking over Moon Harbor. In one, Brian hacks into the brain of a giant anglerfish demon to soar it through the sky, while Ryder and Carl fight smaller demons on the ground. In another, Faye kills Mary Louise Rogers. The final panel shows the fight with Zielkev, who Faye takes down just as her claw stabs through and kills Carl. The next page is a 2-page spread of the team standing at the rain at a funeral, accompanied by a host of familiar faces. There is no text on the page, just the still image of a group in mourning. The next page shows several rather mundane panels, small and not filling the whole page. Brian tinkers with Isaac, his assistant and robotic companion. Lighthammer meets the original Lighthammer, whose legacy he stole, and they shake hands. Ryder looks over files about Dark Rider and other potential riders in the city, with one file showing the picture of a young woman with a mohawk. Behind them, we see a tree swirling with mystical energy and a mysterious voice saying, "Child of Gaia." Sitting at the base of the tree is a young boy who we know as Inky. Animals and plants all around him. On the next page, the team stands, talking with a tall man who seems to be covered in tree bark, known as Poison Oak, as he guides Inky towards them. The magical energy swirling through the trees around them seems very similar to Carl's energy from previous pages. We turn the page and see our newest iteration of the team, in a chaotic fight at a zoo with the Gun Wizard, a villain who uses guns and magic. Various panels show Inky riding a giraffe, Lighthammer cornering Gun Wizard, and Brian getting bit by a snake. The next page shows Brian in the hospital, as Remix attacks. His eyes snap open, and he bites a portal Remix is creating, new powers activating and dissolving it into digital dust, but not before he falls into it and into another dimension. The next page is split, showing a young woman named Allie and Brian fighting alongside alternate reality versions of some familiar faces in a cyberpunk future on one side, and Lighthammer, Ryder Typhon, and Inky fighting a figure covered in scrolls with cryptic writing on them. This is the villain Namshub. At the bottom of that page, the team reunites as Brian and Allie fall through a portal back into this dimension. The next page is once again split into several smaller panels. In one, Poison Oak explains that Inky is a bridge between our world and the natural world, which is drawing him into the sights of a group called the Cabal of the Unquestioned, who seek to use his energy. In another, Leo explains to Felix that there are other riders emerging and he must train them. In yet another, the adult Lighthammer tells the young Lighthammer to control his powers. These 3 panels lead into another fight with Gun Wizard, this time assisted by the young woman with the mohawk we saw earlier. Halfpipe, also known as HP, a rider with a skateboard. The team defeats her, and Ryder decides to train her. The final 2-page spread of our comic shows our group at a party. A banner reads, "Good luck, Felix," and everyone's talking and saying their goodbyes. There's an editor's note that says, "The team is down to 3 now, but are they enough for the looming threats?" A bar across the bottom of the page shows all the foes the team have yet to deal with. Dykstra, Remix, Namshub, and several other faces that are obscured. And with that, we turn the page and our story comes to an end. Be sure to come back and join the Faces team for their new adventures in early January.
Moon Harbor Heroes is produced by Anthony Sheets, T.B. Hughes, and Elliot Peterson, and edited by Anthony Sheets and Sean Geddes. Anthony can be found on Twitter at IcyNewYear or at IcyNewYear.com. T is a theater artist and educator in the DC area. She can be found at T Hughes Playwright on Twitter or TPHughes94 on Instagram. Elliot can be found at Elliot Ylen on Twitter. That's ELLIOTYLEN. Sean can be found at The Crumpit, THECRUMPIT, on Twitter. Moon Harbor Heroes is played using Masks: A New Generation, written by Brendan Conway and produced by Magpie Games. Our logo was designed by Beautiful Beasties. She can be found on Instagram at beastly.doodles or on Patreon at patreon.com/beautifulbeasties. The music in this issue is Black Vortex by Kevin MacLeod. If you want to get a hold of us, email us at moonharborheroes@gmail.com or find us on Twitter at moonharborcast. If you enjoyed this issue, please leave us a review on your podcatcher of choice or tell a friend. 5-star reviews and word of mouth are really the best way for us to keep bringing these stories to more people. If you'd like to support us financially, check us out at patreon.com/moonharborheroes. Supporting us there will give you access to bonus issues each month. And thank you for helping us save the world. We'll see you next issue.